Assessment data is of little value unless you use it. The reason why we give MAP is to use that information to inform instructional decisions. Making informed instructional decisions increases efficiency and increases achievement. So how do we use the MAP data to increase student achievement? Remember that the learning continuum that MAP is based on is not grade level specific. It is grade level independent. So within any one RIT range, there may be content from multiple grade levels. Also, remember back to how MAP is constructed. We need to keep this in mind to use the data in the proper context. A student's RIT score represents what a student is ready to learn. The student answered about 50% of the content correctly in that RIT range in which they are placed. This is based on Vygotsky's theory of the zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development is the sweet spot, where learning is not too difficult and not too easy. Skills and concepts that the student already knows and can do independently do not increase learning. This is just practice. Skills and concepts that the students cannot yet perform, even with assistance, is frustrational. Optimal learning happens when instruction is just out of reach of the student. Skills and concepts that they have not yet mastered, but that they can do with support and scaffolding. This is why guided reading should be done at the instructional reading level of the student, and why a MAP RIT score identifies the place on the learning continuum where a student answers about half right and half wrong. This is where the student is ready for instruction. The most valuable tool that I can give you to use MAP data for instructional decisions is the Class by RIT report in EdgeGence. There are other trainings available through the assessment department about how to use Class by RIT to guide instructional decisions. I'm going to give you just a bit about this tool today. You will make your selections in the drop-down menu and click the green button to run the report. As the teacher of record for your students, you will have access to any subject area MAP test that they have taken, regardless of the subject that you teach. The benefit of this layout is that your students are grouped for you based on their MAP performance, and you can use this information to group students in different ways for different purposes. The Class by RIT report is divided into the strands of MAP. In this case, Reading MAP has 3 strands. Each student will appear in each strand. His overall MAP score is next to his name, but he's placed in the RIT range depending on where he performed in that particular strand. In this case, the student has a 214 overall in MAP, but he's placed in the 211 to 220 range for vocabulary and for author's purpose and craft. He was placed in the 201 to 210 range for multiple genres. This shows a relative weakness in the area of multiple genres for the student. So if I were to target an area for growth, either for goal setting, tutoring, intervention, or small group instruction with the student, I may want to do that in the area of multiple genres. However, when we're talking about Math MAP, the math department would want me to tell you that not all strands of math are equal. Strands 1 and 2, numerical representation and relationships, and computations and algebraic relationships are the building blocks, the foundational pieces of math. If a low-performing student is lowest in geometry and measurement, but still below grade level in all strands, working geometry and measurement will not build a strong foundation in math, like working in numerical representations would, or computations and algebraic relationships. In other words, you would not necessarily always pick the lowest strand to work on. The benefit of this layout, however, is that your students are grouped for you based on their MAP performance, and you can use this to group students in different ways for different purposes. Some teams work together to create flexible groups for intervention or tutoring based on the layout. Some teachers focus on one strand at a time, providing intervention or enrichment, in addition to the curriculum, as needed for students based on their performance in the strand. Some teachers look for each student's greatest area of need and provide intervention for each student based on their needs. This does work best with flexible grouping across the team. There are many ways to use this layout for grouping students for different learning opportunities. To find out specifically what a group of students in the same cell is ready to learn, hover over the cell and it will turn yellow. Then click in the cell to see what students in this cell are ready to learn. When you click on the cell, you will see learning statements from MAP and grade level TEKS. These learning statements come directly from NWEA, but are filtered by grade level. The learning statements are what the questions on MAP are framed around. Next to the learning statements are the grade level TEKS that correspond to these learning statements. These TEKS and learning statements represent the student's instructional level, what they are ready to learn. So this is where we begin instruction. Notice the arrows in the top right. The green up and down arrows allow you to navigate up and down between grade levels, depending on the needs of the student. The blue left and right arrows allow you to navigate back and forth between RIT bands. This information makes the connection from the assessment back to the curriculum you teach. These learning statements and TEKS can be used in a variety of ways. You can print this page to share with parents to help explain what MAP means. You can use this with students to do a learning-focused concrete goal setting. You can use these learning statements and TEKS in conjunction with your curriculum to identify concepts to review, reteach, or intervene with students. You can use these learning statements and TEKS in conjunction with your curriculum to enrich for higher performing students. You can look ahead at the TEKS coming up in your curriculum and use this information to front load for students who may need scaffolding. And since your curricular materials are coded by TEKS, you can use these standards listed to find resources to teach the standards that these students may need. It is an expectation that all teachers refer to the Class by RIT report to bring meaning and instructional implications to MAP.